So Pierre Poilievre walks into a conservative convention in Calgary this weekend, and the bartender says, "Why the long face?" And Pierre says, "Well, I'm down 9 points to a guy who spent the week in Davos eating fancy cheese and pretending to understand blockchain." I wish I was joking, but folks, the polling numbers are in, and they're spicier than a Calgary Stampede breakfast. Welcome back to Canadian Insights, where we break down the chaos of Canadian politics so you don't have to. I'm your host, and today we're talking about Pierre Poilievre's no good, very bad week heading into what might be the most awkward leadership review since your last performance evaluation at work. Buckle up, because this story has more twists than a pretzel factory in Quebec. Let's paint the picture here. Poilievre is packing his bags for Calgary, probably triple-checking his speech notes, maybe stress-eating Tim Hortons Timbits, and definitely refreshing his phone every 5 minutes hoping those poll numbers were just a bad dream. But nope, they're real. A fresh Ledger poll for Post Media dropped like a piano from a cartoon window, and it shows the Conservatives trailing the Liberals by 9 points. 9. That's 47 to 38 if you're keeping score at home, which apparently Pierre is, obsessively, probably with a color-coded spreadsheet and everything. Now, before the Conservative faithful start sending me angry emails written entirely in caps lock, let's be clear about what this means. This poll was taken between January 23rd and 26th, right after Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister, came back from his international tour looking like he just won a game show. The guy went to China, shook some hands, probably ate some incredible dumplings, then jetted off to Davos where he gave a speech that apparently made people think, hey, maybe Canada has its act together after all. Meanwhile, Poilievre was back home doing what he does best, criticizing everything while the numbers started sliding like a toboggan down a hill. Here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting I mean politically messy in the most Canadian way possible. This Ledger poll is different from other recent polling that had the Liberals and Conservatives much closer together. We're talking neck and neck, photo finish, too close to call territory. So what changed? Well, apparently Carney's international swagger matters. Who knew that Canadians actually like seeing their Prime Minister act like a world leader instead of, I don't know, just complaining about the other guy on social media? Revolutionary concept, I know. The Carney effect is real, people. The man shows up to Davos, which is basically summer camp for billionaires and politicians who use words like synergy unironically, and suddenly Canadians are looking at him like he's the cool dad at the school pickup line. He's talking economics, he's talking climate, he's talking international cooperation, and voters are eating it up like poutine at 2 in the morning. Meanwhile, Poilievre's strategy of being the political equivalent of a very articulate angry tweet isn't quite landing the same way it used to. But wait, there's more, because Pierre isn't just dealing with bad polling numbers from the general public. Oh no, that would be too simple, too straightforward, too boring for Canadian politics. He's also got his leadership review coming up at this Calgary convention, which means he needs to prove to his own party that he's still the guy for the job. Imagine going to a family reunion where everyone's going to vote on whether they still like you. That's essentially what's happening here, except the family is a bunch of Conservative Party members and the stakes are control of the entire opposition. Leadership reviews are supposed to be formalities, little rubber stamp moments where everyone claps politely and moves on. But when you're down 9 points to a Prime Minister who just spent the week looking competent on the world stage, that rubber stamp starts feeling more like an interrogation. Poilievre needs strong numbers from his base, like really strong numbers, the kind that say, yes, we still believe in you even though the polls look like a rejected math homework assignment. Let's talk about what this all means for a second, because it's easy to get lost in the polling numbers and forget there's actual human drama happening here. Poilievre built his brand on being the outsider, the fighter, the guy who's going to call out the elites and stand up for regular Canadians. It's a good brand. It worked for a while. The problem is that Mark Carney is really good at looking like he knows what he's doing, and in politics, perception is basically everything. It's like showing up to a battle of the bands with your garage rock trio and the other guy brings a full orchestra. Sure, your songs might be catchy, but they've got violins and everything. The challenge for Poilievre is that his whole shtick relies on the Liberals looking incompetent, out of touch, and generally like they're making it up as they go along. But Carney isn't giving him that. Carney's out here looking polished, prepared, and prime ministerial, which is really inconvenient if your entire campaign strategy is based on the other guy being a disaster. It's hard to run as the savior when the person you're trying to save people from looks like they're doing just fine, thank you very much. Now, the Conservative diehards are probably screaming at their screens right now saying, it's just one poll. Polls don't matter. Remember 2016. And look, they're not entirely wrong. Polls are snapshots, not prophesize. They're like checking the weather forecast 3 weeks before your camping trip, interesting information but not exactly reliable. Political fortunes can change faster than a Canadian spring, which is to say very fast and often without warning. But here's the thing, when you're the opposition leader and you're supposed to be cruising to victory, being down 9 points isn't great. It's not catastrophic, it's not game over, but it's definitely not where you want to be. What makes this particularly spicy is the timing. This isn't happening in some random week in July when nobody's paying attention. This is happening right before a major Conservative convention where Poilievre needs to rally the troops, energize the base, and convince everyone that he's still the guy who can take down the Liberals. Walking into that room down 9 points is like showing up to a pep rally after losing the big game. Sure, everyone will still cheer because that's what you do, but there's going to be some awkward silences and concerned looks. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture here, because Canadian politics is basically a long-running drama series and we're in the middle of a really interesting season. The Liberals just swapped out their lead character, bringing in Carney, who has actual international credibility and economic chops that even his critics have to grudgingly respect. The Conservatives, meanwhile, are sticking with Poilievre, who's been sharpening his attack lines for years but is now finding that his opponent is a much tougher target than expected. It's like training to fight one type of boss in a video game and then they switch it up on you at the last minute. The question everyone's asking is whether Poilievre can adapt. Can he change his approach to deal with a prime minister who doesn't fit the mold of what he was expecting? Or is he going to keep running the same playbook and hope that eventually the polls swing back his way? Because right now, the strategy of just keep criticizing everything and eventually people will agree with you isn't working as well as it used to. Carney's international trip showed Canadians that leadership can look different, that maybe they want someone who can hold their own on the world stage, not just someone who can throw really good shade on Twitter. Here's what's going to be fascinating to watch at this Calgary convention. Poilievre needs to thread a very delicate needle. He needs to show confidence to his base without looking delusional about the polling numbers. He needs to acknowledge the challenge without sounding defeated. He needs to energize the party without making promises he can't keep. It's political tightrope walking at its finest, and one wrong step could turn this leadership review from a formality into a full-blown crisis. Not saying it will happen, but the possibility is there, hanging in the air like the smell of Stampede funnel cake. The Conservative base is loyal, don't get me wrong. These are people who've stuck with the party through thick and thin, through victories and defeats, through scandal and success. But they're also pragmatic. They want to win. And if they start thinking that Poilievre can't beat Carney, well, that's when things get interesting. That's when the whispers start, the side conversations, the have-you-considered discussions that happen in hotel hallways after the official events are over. What Poilievre has going for him is time. The next election isn't tomorrow. He's got runway to figure this out, to recalibrate, to find a message that resonates against this new version of the Liberal Party. But time cuts both ways. The longer Carney looks competent and the longer these poll numbers stay underwater, the more nervous Conservative MPs and party members are going to get. Politics is a confidence game, and right now, the confidence meter is flickering. The other wild card here is that politics is unpredictable. Carney could stumble. The Liberals could face a crisis that makes them look bad. International events could shift the conversation in ways nobody expects. A 9-point deficit today could be a tie tomorrow, or it could be a 15-point deficit next week. We just don't know. But what we do know is that Poilievre is heading into this convention with more questions than answers, and that's not where an opposition leader wants to be. So there you have it, folks. Pierre Poilievre's high-stakes weekend in Calgary, where he needs to convince his own party that he's still the right choice while simultaneously dealing with poll numbers that suggest Canadian voters might be falling for Mark Carney's whole competent leader routine. Will he pull it off? Will the leadership review be smooth sailing or rocky waters? Will the polls shift back, or is this the new normal? Your guess is as good as mine, but I'll be here breaking it all down for you every step of the way. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Canadian political chaos, smash that like button, subscribe to Canadian Insights for more daily updates, and drop a comment below telling me what you think. Is Poilievre in real trouble, or is this just a temporary blip? Can Carney maintain this momentum, or will it fade? I want to hear your thoughts. And hey, we're posting multiple videos a day, so stick around because Canadian politics never sleeps and neither do we. Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, and remember, in Canadian politics, the only thing more unpredictable than the weather is the polls. See you in the next one.